from Autosavant.com with our video review of the 2013 Acura ILX. And before we go too much farther, I just wanted to ask you a question. When was the last time that you were pleasantly surprised by something? I can tell you before we get any farther, the ILX has been nothing but a pleasant surprise. The ILX comes in 3 different flavors. You can get a 2-liter inline-4 with a 5-speed automatic transmission, a 2.4-liter inline-4 with a 6-speed manual transmission, and I believe a 1.5-liter hybrid that is derived from the Civic. This ILX is the one with the 2.4-liter inline-4 that makes 201 horsepower and is mated to what might be the nicest manual transmission you can buy in a front-wheel drive car. So under the covers, the ILX is a Honda Civic, but they've made some pretty dramatic changes to it. The A-pillars on this car are 7 inches farther back than they are on the Civic, and where the front of the dashboard touches is 3 inches farther back. So they've done quite a bit to take the coupe-like profile of the 4-door Civic and turn this into much more of a sedan in a lot of ways. It has a real hood on it. The back end's a little squatty from the front quarter view, but from the rear quarter and a lot of the other profiles, it really is a handsome little thing. This is also Acura's new design styling. It has, the chrome beak that everybody's called it on the front, but it's much more subdued and pretty handsome in all honesty. So this car comes in just over $30,000, and really there's no options. It's very Acura-like in that if you want the premium version with the manual, the only real options that are available are sort of the dealer-installed variety. Before we go any farther, I do have to admit that recently I've given Honda and Acura, in all honesty, quite a bit of a hard time. I just thought they were falling behind compared to the rest of the industry. I knew that they still made some good motors and put together some good pieces of cars, but their overall packages seemed to be lacking. Well, in this, I can tell you that I'm willing to admit that I was wrong. Honda and Acura can still do a lot of things really, really right. And in this, they've really done a wonderful job. And what's interesting is it isn't with technology or, gizmos and add-ons. In a lot of ways, this ILX is an enormously simple car. It's a naturally aspirated engine when everybody else in the industry is going to some kind of forced induction to get up their torque numbers and give you that sort of meaty feel of pull. Where this, with this manual transmission, it really wants to be revved. It runs all the way out till above 7,000, and all the way there it continues to make more power. And the gauge pack that you get in front of you is really, really simple in all honesty. It's black, red, and white. But you know what? It's perfectly clear, it works really well, and it looks really, really nice. So the rest of the dashboard is really handsome. A lot of it is taken from the TL, so you do get a very button-heavy interface that a lot of people have been quick to criticize, but I'm a fan of being able to get directly to whatever action that you're interested to take. So with climate control, there's buttons for that. For all the radio functions, there's buttons for that. There's no interaction with the touchscreen. Really a control knob, in all honesty. They do have one, but this car is not outfitted with navigation. All you get up on the screen is the backup camera, which it comes with, and any of the radio identification stuff that might be there. After you spend some time with the ILX, you do start to realize that Honda does know how to get certain things just right, and Acura maybe even more so. Little things like the turn signals on this still work like regular old turn signals. You do get if you touch it, you get 3 blinks for merges, but the way they click and the way they engage are all so good. All the dials and all the little icons on the dials are clear and legible and simple. It just all feels like it's been gone over with a fine-tooth comb, and everything's been tweaked and perfected to just the right place. You spend time with the 6-speed, they're just aren't many manual transmissions that are as good as this one. And in a front-wheel drive car, there may be none. You get this little itty-bitty leather-wrapped shift knob that falls exactly. I mean, this is the kind of stuff, it's just the way you'd want it. And the 3-pedal setup, if you've never learned how to heel-toe brake a car, so when you're coming into a corner, if you want to rev match your downshifts, the way the pedals are set up in this car are just perfectly placed. The seating position feels good. I mean, I can just go on and on about all the little touches that are there that make this feel like a special little luxury sedan. The clutch has a hill hold feature. If you leave it pushed all the way in, the car will roll backwards, but as you start to lift it off of the ground, it bothers to hold the car for you, so it makes pulling away on uphills easy. And the steering, despite it being, you know, a front-wheel drive thing, you get a little bit of lift-off throttle, you know, oversteer. You can really start to balance the chassis working with the throttle. And because the engine doesn't make an enormous amount of power, isn't all that torquey, you do wind up shifting it quite a bit, but it's such a pleasurable experience, you really don't get tired of it. The clutch is a really, really short throw pedal take on it, and its engagement point is just about perfect. The 2.4 liter inline 4 that's in this car doesn't seem to have what I've always had an issue with, which is a lot of the Hondas that I've driven lately, and a lot of the Acuras that I've driven lately, when you get hard on the throttle and you let off the throttle, I feel like the electronic controls that control the throttle bodies leave things open a little bit long, so it's hard to get the timing right when you want to hustle through gears. This doesn't have any of that. The throttle programming seems to be absolutely spot on, so that when you get off of it, it starts to drop revs, and you know the 6-speedness is close enough ratio that it always drops just enough so that when you hammer into the next gear, you're right at the right engagement point. So as I mentioned, this car is based off of the Civic, much the way the Integra used to be based off the Civic. And if any of you had a chance to drive an Integra, it was a really good car. You know, it was a sort of sporty little sedan or coupe for a younger professional, somebody who didn't have a ton of money but still wanted to enjoy driving. In a lot of ways, it seems like they've brought that back with the ILX. Now, it being an Acura, they have done quite a bit to update it and make it more refined. The suspension tuning is a little different. The geometry is basically the same with different attachment points to make it feel a little bit more damped. It's got 2-stage dampers so that initial bumps are met with one set of resistance, but bigger bumps are met with a heavier set of resistance. The steering rack is quicker than it is in the Civic, and they've actually outfitted a larger diameter main shaft to it to make it so that there's less sort of noise and harshness and vibration that come through the steering wheel. This car also comes with active noise reduction, so the speakers are actually, you know, there's a microphone somewhere in here and the speakers are listening to mute out the noises that they don't want to come through. Still, Honda's inline 4, you know, there's something to be said for fuel-injected engine still. It doesn't have that diesel clatter on idle, and it really does sound very nice as it revs through its rev range. I'm out here on one of the more miserable concrete with macadam, you know, highways, just to give you guys an idea of what the ride's like. Even though it's pretty sporty, it's reasonably quiet. You know, I don't run a microphone intentionally on a lavalier the way a lot of people do. I leave one in the car so all the environmental noises of the car come through. And as a result of that, things like the radar detector come through loud and clear. So I've obviously rambled on quite a bit about the good of the ILX. It's not perfect though. You know, there are things like it's still a Civic, so there isn't a ton of headroom in here for people who are 6 foot tall. Fortunately, this one does have the power seat, so it does have some height adjustability built into it. There's only one, at least that I've found, 12-volt outlet. So if you are like we are and run a radar detector in some of the sportier cars you drive, it does have to be run through a cord all the way down into the center console. Fortunately, they have put a USB cable adapter into the car so you can keep your phone or portable player charged. The interface to that works quite well. Bluetooth, the Acura Bluetooth setup right now is not the best of the systems as far as being intuitive, but once it's been paired, it's worked just fine. You know, there's other little niggling things, like there's a crack in the mirror that's then angled out to work as a blind spot mirror, but the systems where they actually put in the upper corner the real blind spot area on the mirrors works a lot better. Fortunately, the B-pillar in this car isn't too bad that you don't get a big blind spot over your left shoulder, so it's not that large of an issue. The other thing that makes the ILX work so well is its weight. It comes in at under 3,000 pounds, which in today's world really is a lot lighter than most of the things that are in its class. Because of that, even though it doesn't have the most powerful engine, in all honesty, it doesn't make a ton of power under 4,000 RPM, but it likes to rev, and even though we've been happily revving it along, it's gotten 28 miles per gallon during the time that we've had it. So it is a little strange that it took an Acura to remind me that the simplicity of a car can actually make it nice and special. But the Acura ILX has really done that. Now, there's an important note in all of this, and that's the fact that I don't honestly believe, although it's just a guess, that the 5-speed automatic one would feel quite as special because it makes less horsepower and doesn't have as many ratios. So, this is really a review just for the manual shift version of the car because it's a bespoke engine combination that comes with it. So as I always am, I'm Kevin Gordon from AutoSavant.com. I look forward to talking to you guys soon.